Limburgish, also called Limburgian or Limburgic, is a group of East Low Franconian language varieties spoken in the Limburg and Rhineland regions, along the Dutch-Belgian-German border. The area in which it is spoken roughly fits within a wide circle from Venlo to Düsseldorf to Aachen to Maastricht to Tienen and back to Venlo. In some parts of this area it is generally used as the colloquial language in daily speech. It shares many characteristics both with German and Dutch and is often considered as a variant of one of these languages. Within the modern communities of the Belgian and Dutch provinces of Limburg, intermediate dialects are also very common, which combine Standard Dutch with the accent and some grammatical and pronunciation tendencies derived from Limburgish. This, Limburgish Dutch, is confusingly also often referred to simply as Limburgish. Etymology. The name Limburgish derives only indirectly from the now Belgian town of Limburg, which was the capital of the Duchy of Limburg during the Middle Ages. More directly it is derived from the more modern name of the province of Limburg in the Kingdom of the Netherlands, which has been split today into a Belgian Limburg and a Dutch Limburg. In the area around the old Duchy of Limburg the main language today is French. But there is also a particular Limburgish language which is sometimes referred to as Low Deutsch dialects. People from Limburg usually call their language Platt, the same as Low German speakers do. This Platt refers simply to the fact that the language is spoken in the Low Plains country, as opposed to the use of High and High German languages, which are derived from dialects spoken in the more mountainous southerly regions. The word can also be associated with platteland. The general Dutch term for the language of ordinary people in former ages was Deutsch or Deutsch, as it still exists in the term Low Deutsch. This term is originally derived from Proto-Germanic teerdiskas, meaning of the people. In Dutch the word Platt means flat but also refers to the way a language is spoken. Platt means slang, in that case. Extent. Limburgish has partially overlapping definition areas, depending on the criteria used. All dialects spoken within the political boundary of the two Limburg provinces. Limburgish according to Jodan, the associative arrow method of Mertens Institute. South Lower Franconian, isogloss definition between the Uerdingen and Benreath lines by Wenke, Schreinen and Goossens. Western limit of Limburgish pitch accent. Southeast Limburgish dialect. This includes a part of the Ripuarian language in Germany. History and classification. Except for the Southeast Limburgish dialect, modern Limburgish descends from some of the dialects that formed the offspring of Old Dutch in the early Middle Ages, its history being at least as long as that of other Low Franconian languages, of which some eventually yielded Standard Dutch. Being a variety of Franconian descent, Limburgish can today be considered as a regional language overarched by two succeeding Dachsprachen, which are Dutch in Belgium and the Netherlands and German in Germany. Under the influence of the Merovingian and especially the Carolingian dynasty, Eastern Low Franconian underwent much influence from the neighboring High German languages. This resulted among other things in the partial participation of Eastern Low Franconian in the High German consonant shift in the 10th and especially the 11th century, which makes the Limburgish-speaking area also part of the so-called Rhenish Fan. It is especially this trait which distinguishes Limburgish from Western Low Franconian. In the past, all Limburgish dialects were therefore sometimes seen as West Central German, part of High German. This difference is caused by a difference in definition. The latter stance defines a High German variety as one that has taken part in any of the first three phases of the High German consonant shift. It is nevertheless most common in linguistics to consider Limburgish as Low Franconian. From the 13th century on, however, the Duchy of Brabant extended its power. As a consequence, at first, the western and then also the eastern variants of Limburgish underwent great influence of Brabantian. When Standard Dutch was formed out of elements of different Low Franconian dialects in the 16th century, The Limburgish dialect spoken in the Low Countries had little or no influence on this process. As a result, Limburgish, although being essentially a variety of Low Franconian, still has a considerable distance from Standard Dutch with regards to phonology, morphology and lexicon today. Moreover, being of East Low Franconian origin, it also has many distinctive features in comparison with the West Low Franconian varieties such as the Hollandic dialect, the Brabantian dialect and South Gelderish, Limburgish and Muisrhenish in German sources. The dialects linguistically counting as Limburgish spoken to the east of the River Rhine are called Bergisch. West of the River Rhine they are called Low Rhenish, which is considered a transitional zone between Low Franconian and Ripuarian. Thus, formerly German linguists tended to call these dialects Low German. Limburgish is spoken in a considerable part of the German Lower Rhine area, in what linguistically could be called German Limburg. This area extends from the border regions of Cleves, Aachen, Viersen and Heinsberg, stretching out to the Rhine River. Modern linguists, both in the Netherlands and in Germany, now often combine these distinct varieties with the Cleves dialects. This superordinating group of Low Franconian varieties is called Muisrhenish, or in German, Rheinmarusländisch. Both Limburgish and Low Rhenish belong to this greater Meuse-Rhine area, building a large group of southeastern Low Franconian dialects, including areas in Belgium, the Netherlands and the German Northern Rhineland. The northwestern part of this triangle came under the influence of the Dutch Standard language, especially since the founding of the United Kingdom of the Netherlands in 1815. At the same time, the southeastern portion became part of the Kingdom of Prussia, and was subject to High German language domination. At the dialectal level, however, mutual understanding is still possible far beyond both sides of the national borders. The Muisrhenish dialects can be divided into northern and southern varieties. Hence, Limburgish is southwest and Muisrhenish is spoken in Belgium, the Netherlands and the German Lower Rhine. As discussed above, Limburgish straddles the borderline between Low Franconian and Middle Franconian varieties. These southwestern Muisrhenish dialects are more or less mutually intelligible with the Ripuarian dialects, but have been influenced less by the High German consonant shift form. Limburgish is far from being homogeneous. In other words, it has numerous varieties instead of one single standard form. Between 1995 and 1999, a uniform standard form called AGL was developed and proposed, but found too little support. Today the so-called Belg spelling, which was first applied in the 1940s, is most of the time used to write in a specific Limburgish dialect. In 2000, the Parliament of the province of East Limburg enacted a measure establishing the Limburgish Language Council, a committee which advises the East Limburgish Parliament on measures in relation to Limburgish. In 2003, the Limburgish Language Council adopted a standard orthography for Limburgish. On the basis of this standard orthography, the Limburgish Academy Foundation is creating Limburgish Dutch, Limburgish English, Dutch Limburgish and English Limburgish dictionaries. Contemporary usage. Limburgish is spoken by approximately 1.6 million people in the Low Countries and by many hundreds of thousands in Germany. It is especially in the Dutch province of Limburg that Limburgish is used not only in everyday speech, but also often in more formal situations and on the local and regional radio. According to a recent study by Geert Driessen, in 2011 Limburgish was spoken by 54% of the adults and 31% of the children. Limburgish has no real written tradition, except for its early beginnings. Hendrik van Belk wrote in a Middle Limburgish dialect. Especially in the Netherlands, the cultural meaning of the language is also important. Many song texts are written in a Limburgish dialect, for example during Carnival. Jack Poels writes most of his texts for Rowan Hezzer in Sevenims, a dialect of northern Limburgish. To what degree Limburgish actually is spoken in Germany today remains a matter of debate. Depending on the city in these parts of Germany, 50% to 90% of the population speak a local or regional form of Rhenish, which is either Limburgish or Bergisch, according to A. Schunt 2001. However, this percentage seems to be a clear overestimation, as far as the German situation is concerned. The same holds true for his estimation of the Belgian situation. Moreover, research into some specific variants seems to indicate a gradual process of development towards the national standardized Dutch, especially amongst younger generations. In Belgium, the Limburgish dialects are more endangered than in the Netherlands. Linguistic versus societal status. In a decree dated December 24, 1990, the Belgian Walloon regional government was the first to officially recognize Limburgish, as spoken in West Limburg, as a regional, indigenous language. In March 1997, the Dutch government recognized Limburgish as a regional language in the Netherlands. As such, it receives moderate protection under Chapter 2 of the European Charter for Regional or Minority Languages. It has been argued, however, that this recognition was highly politically motivated and done more on socio-linguistic than purely linguistic grounds. In 1999, the Dutch Language Union, the de facto language authority which asserted that it had not been asked for advice, opposed the recognition. From the Limburgish side, it has been argued that the arguments put forth against the recognition of Limburgish were not based on linguistic considerations, but rather a concern for maintaining the dominance of the Dutch language. On the other hand, Limburgish has not been recognized by the German and Belgian national governments as an official language so far. An attempt at recognition, made after Limburgish had been recognized in the Netherlands, failed in the Belgian parliament due to Flemish opposition. It should be noted that political power in Belgium is divided according to linguistic lines. Recognizing Limburgish would weaken Flemish political power. Subdivisions of Limburgish. Principal dialects: Limburgish, Northern Limburgish, East Limburgish, Limbricksch dialect, Sittard dialect, Stein dialect, Central Limburgish, Montfortian dialect, Weert dialect, Maastrichtian dialect, Southeast Limburgish, Aachen dialect, Kerkrade dialect, Heerlen dialect, West Limburgish, Hasselt dialect, Veldt dialect. The dialect of Venlo is generally considered a transition dialect between East Limburgish and Clevelandish. Expanded Sunny de Frankish is a concept used in Germany to describe the Limburgish language of Germany. It is a group spoken in a part of the Bergisches Land region near Düsseldorf east of the Rhine and in the Lower Rhine area between the rivers Rhine and Maas. The latter shortly behind the Dutch-German border in the vicinity of Heinsberg and Nettetal. These languages are predominantly seen as belonging to the Limburgish language group. They were also referred to as the East Limburgish group. It encompasses the varieties of Limburgish spoken in Germany. They are also seen as part of the Rhenish language group. Population using one of the languages in the group either name their local variety Bergisch, or Platt, or after their village, town, or city place Platt. People from outside the Rhineland often make less distinctions and use the term Rhinelandic for large set of varieties of languages. The Limburgish group belongs to the continental West Germanic dialect continuum. As usual inside dialect continua, neighboring languages have a maximum of similarities, and speakers being used to the rather small individual lingual differences in their immediate neighborhood perceive them as close and familiar, while more distant ones became gradually harder to understand with distance. That ends, in the Dutch-German continuum at least, most often with incomprehensible dialects. Isoglosses are so dense in this area that practically every village or town has its own distinct dialect of Limburgish. Large cities such as Mönchengladbach, Krefeld, and Düsseldorf have several local dialect varieties. The named cities have in common that they are large enough to in part extend outside the area of the dialect group. Thus each has one or more quarters outside, having vernacular languages belonging to adjacent groups, such as Cleverlands or Riparian. A few sample South Low Franconian dialects are Dremmener Platte of Dremmen near Heinsberg, Brailsch Platte of Brail in Nettetal, Jalabarker Platte of Central Mönchengladbach, Jerefruther Platte of Grefrath, Viersner Platte of Viersen, Foschelner Platte of Fischeln in Krefeld, Kreuisch of Central Krefeld, Odensche Uerdingen in Krefeld, Dusseldorfer Platte of Northern and Central Dusseldorf, Rotinger Platte of Ratingen, Wolfrather Platte of Wolfrath, Mettmansch Platte of Mettmann, Solinger Platte of Solingen, Riemschede Platte of Remscheid, and many more. The group combines Low Franconian properties with some Riparian properties, such as tonal accents. The pronoun I translates as ek or iech. The word but most often as or were, all like Riparian. Contrasting time is translated as tide, to have mostly as heb, today as vandage, all typical for Low Franconian. An area close to Westphalia called Bergisches Land is considered to be the area where Bergisch is spoken. This area is limited roughly by a line Dusseldorf, Mettmann, Zoling and Remscheid. For a more encompassing view, see the article on Low Rhenish. Nord-Limburgs is the Dutch term for a group of dialects spoken north of the Uerdingen line, i.e., from just south of Venlo upward to the north in the Dutch province of Limburg. These dialects share many features with both the Zoutgelders and Brabantian dialects and are closer to Standard Dutch than the more southern language varieties. The term Nord-Limburgs is used by Jodan for the entire province north of the Uerdingen line, whereas other linguists use it only for the part that has tonality, the language north of this region then being considered Cleverlandish. The north border of the Limburgish tonality zone lies a little north of Assen and Horst an der Maas and just above the Miege, Mitch isogloss, also known as the Mischquartier. This makes this Limburgish isogloss the northernmost of all. Venlo lies between the Miege, Mitch isogloss and the Uerdingen line, so the Venlo dialect is the only one with both forms ik and Michdik. All dialects in the Dutch province of Limburg spoken north of the tonality border are South-Gelderus in linguistic respect. The dialects spoken in the most southeastern part of the Dutch province of North Brabant also have many Limburgish characteristics. An important difference between these dialects and the adjacent ones in the Dutch province of Limburg is, however, that the second-person pronoun gij is here used instead of do, as in purely Brabantian dialects. Central Limburgs includes the area around Maastricht, Sittard, Roermond, the eastern half of Belgian Limburg, and the Belgian Voeren area, and stretches further northeast. Belgian linguists use a more refined classification. Dutch linguists use the term Oost-Limburgs for the form of Limburgish spoken in an area from Belgian Voeren south of Maastricht in the Netherlands to the German border. For them, West-Limburgs is the variety of Limburgish spoken in Belgium in the area east of the Uerdingen line. For example, in and around Hasselt and Tongeren. It includes areas in Dutch Limburg and Dutch Brabant. The border of West-Limburgs and Oost-Limburgs starts a little south of the area between the villages of Gravenvoeren and St. Martins Voeren in the Belgian municipality of Erren. Southeast Limburgish is spoken in and around Kerkrade, Simpelveld, Bockholtz and Vaals in the Netherlands, Aachen in Germany and Reren and Einatten in Belgium. Especially in Germany, these dialects are usually considered as variants of Riparian, not of Limburgish. According to a more contemporary vision, however, all varieties in a wider half-circle some 15 to 20 kilometers around Aachen, including two-thirds of Dutch South Limburg and also the so-called Low Dutch area between Voeren and Eupen in Belgium, can be taken as a group of its own, which recently has been named Limburgish of the Three Countries area, referring to the place where the Netherlands, Belgium and Germany meet. Its concept was introduced by Ad-Welschen, mainly based on research by John Frins. This variety still possesses interesting syntactic idiosyncrasies, probably dating from the period in which the Old Duchy of Limburg existed. Jan Goossens defines the northwest boundary of southeast Limburgish at the Lijkelijk isogloss. The area between this line and the Benruth line is called Ripwarian Limburgish. The area between the Benruth line and the Aat Alt isogloss is then called Arkins or Limburgish Ripwarian. If only tonality is to be taken as to define this variety, it stretches well across the River Rhine into Germany. In Germany, it is consensus to class it as belonging to High German varieties. In order to include this variety properly, a more encompassing concept is needed. The combination of Musrhenish and Ripwarian, including their overlapping transitional zones of southeast Limburgish and Low Deutsch, will do.